What if the world economy crashed overnight? What if the US went into a recession and took other countries down too? It might sound crazy, but many countries depend on the US to survive. Some rely on trade, others on US money. If America falls, they could fall too. Stay with us as we reveal 10 countries that could collapse if the US economy crashes. Number 10, Canada. What if Canada's economy depends more on the US than people realize? You'd be surprised how much Canada leans on its neighbor. The US is Canada's biggest customer, buying around 75% of what Canada sells to other countries. If the US economy falls, Canada's economy would be in trouble too. You might think Canada could survive by selling oil and natural resources, but oil prices depend a lot on US demand. If the US slows down, oil prices could drop, hurting Canada's oil companies badly. That could cause lots of job losses and even crash the housing market. Sure, Canada has strong healthcare and social programs, but a deep recession could put too much stress on them. Millions could struggle to stay stable. Without strong ties to the US, Canada's survival would be much harder. Number 9, Mexico. You might think Mexico would be safe if the US went into a recession, but you'd be surprised at how connected these two countries really are. Every year, billions of dollars in trade move between Mexico and the US. If the US economy falls suddenly, Mexico's economy would be hit hard. In 2023, about 80% of everything Mexico sold overseas went to the US. Big products include cars, electronics, and farm goods. If people in America stopped buying, Mexico's sales would drop fast. This would cause big job losses and more poverty, but that's not the only problem. Many families in Mexico also depend on money sent home by Mexicans working in the US. If jobs and paychecks drop in America, this money would slow down too. Entire communities could struggle just to survive. It could leave Mexico close to collapsing. Number 8, Brazil. What if Brazil, the biggest economy in South America, could be crushed just by a US recession? You'd be shocked how much Brazil depends on America. Brazil sells a lot of things to the US like soybeans, iron, and oil. If the US catches a cold, Brazil could face a full-blown flu. In 2023, over 20% of Brazil's exports went to the US. A drop in US buying would slam Brazil's economy. Farmers and exporters would lose a lot of money. With unemployment already high, things would get even worse. Poverty and inequality would grow fast, but it doesn't stop there. Brazil's government owes a lot of money. If the US slows down, commodity prices would fall, and Brazil's oil sales would crash. The Brazilian real, their money, could lose value fast, causing inflation and protests. Could Brazil survive? It's a risky bet. Number 7, South Korea. Have you ever thought about how a tech giant like South Korea could suffer if the US went into recession? You'd be shocked how closely tied they are. South Korea is home to huge companies like Samsung and Hyundai, and a big chunk of their sales go to the US. In 2023, about 14% of South Korea's economy came from selling goods to America, mostly electronics and cars. So if the US economy drops, South Korea's products would sell less. Their biggest moneymaker, the semiconductor industry, would be badly hurt since US tech companies would buy fewer chips. And that's not the end of it. The damage would spread across South Korea's whole economy, causing job losses and a fall in consumer confidence. Imagine thousands of tech workers losing jobs. With lower wages and higher prices, South Korea's economy could stall badly. And since other East Asian countries rely on South Korea, the problems could spread even wider. Could South Korea survive if the US falls? It's like a ticking time bomb. Number 6, India. What if India's huge tech and outsourcing business collapsed because of a US recession? You'd be surprised how much India depends on the US. Around 60% of the money India's IT companies make comes from American businesses. So, what happens if the US slows down? Companies would cut IT budgets and spend less on outsourcing, meaning fewer jobs in Indian cities like Bengaluru and Hyderabad. Salaries could drop, projects could be cancelled, and millions of workers could suffer. But that's not all. India also depends on money sent home by Indians working abroad, many of them in the US. If jobs disappear there, that money flow would slow down too, pushing more families into poverty. Could India survive such a hit? It's unlikely, especially since its economy is already walking a thin line. Number 5, Argentina. How can a country already struggling get even worse? Just look at Argentina. You'd be shocked how much it still relies on outside help, even after years of economic problems. Inflation there is over 100%, and their money, the peso, is losing value fast. Argentina sells a lot of goods like soybeans, oil and wheat, many of them to the US. If the US slows down, global demand drops, and Argentina's fragile economy could fall apart. You might think they could handle it, but with so much foreign debt, it's very risky. If US banks tighten up lending, Argentina could struggle to get new loans. This could lead to a default where the government can't pay its debts. That could trigger hyperinflation and cause major social unrest. Argentina's problems could also hurt other countries if they get dragged into the mess. A US recession could set off a chain reaction. Number 4, Turkey. Ever wonder how a US recession could bring Turkey to its knees? Turkey's economy is already weak, fighting inflation and a falling currency. It's one of the most at-risk countries if the US crashes. Turkey sells a lot of goods like clothes and machines to America. If the US economy falls, demand would shrink, and Turkish businesses would suffer. But that's just the beginning. Turkey also depends on foreign money coming in from investors, many of them American. If those investors pull out, the Turkish lira could collapse even more. Inflation would skyrocket, and people would suffer even more. Even though Turkey sits between Europe and Asia, its dependence on American trade and tourism is huge. If inflation and unemployment soar, people could rise up in protest. Can Turkey survive without the US? It's hard to say. Number 3, Nigeria. How could a country so rich in resources be so vulnerable? Nigeria depends almost completely on oil to keep its economy going. Oil makes up over 90% of Nigeria's exports, and a lot of it goes to the US. If the US slows down and buys less oil, Nigeria's cash flow would dry up fast. The government would struggle to pay for basic services. You might think Nigeria's oil wealth would save it, but it actually ties them to the global oil market even more. Plus, Nigeria already has big problems: high poverty, high unemployment, and political instability. A US recession would make all of that worse. Many Nigerian families also rely on money sent home from relatives working abroad, especially in the US. If that money stops coming, millions could fall deeper into poverty. Higher inflation, fewer jobs, more unrest. Nigeria could face an economic disaster. Number 2, Saudi Arabia. Imagine if Saudi Arabia, the rich oil giant, collapsed because of a US recession. It might sound crazy, but Saudi Arabia's economy is tied very closely to America. Oil makes up more than 90% of Saudi's income, and the US is a major buyer. If America's economy slows, oil demand could drop fast. That would cut Saudi Arabia's main source of money. And it's not just about losing customers. Lower oil prices would crash Saudi Arabia's financial system. Even though the country has savings, oil sales are still the foundation of everything. Without enough money, big projects could stop, unemployment could rise, and social unrest could grow. Saudi Arabia could face a huge crisis if it can't find new ways to make money fast. The kingdom's future could be much shakier than people think. Number 1, China. Have you ever thought about how a US recession could shake China? China, the world's second biggest economy, depends a lot on the US. China sells nearly $450 billion worth of goods to America every year. If the US economy crashes, demand for Chinese goods would drop fast. China's factories would slow down, leading to layoffs, factory closures, and a big slowdown in growth. And that's not all. US companies have also invested heavily in China. If they pull out, it could cause even more financial problems. China already has a huge debt problem. A US recession could make it much harder for Chinese companies and the government to pay off their loans. Imagine a country built on fast growth suddenly slowing down while struggling with debt. To make things worse, if people in other countries also stop buying Chinese goods, China's troubles could grow even bigger. If China falters, the whole world could feel the impact. China's future might not be as strong as many people think. Wow! A US recession could cause huge problems around the world. Oil-rich countries like Saudi Arabia and Nigeria to tech, and factory giants like China could struggle to survive. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you don't miss our next videos. Thanks for watching.